Good morning. Welcome back into Wake Up America. I'm Rob Finnerty. Hope you had a nice weekend, nice Valentine's Day. I want to welcome in our all-star political panel again. We start with our White House correspondent, Emerald Robinson, down in our nation's capital. Former New York Congresswoman Nan Hayworth is with us, the host of Stacy on the Right, Stacy Washington, political analyst Mark Halperin, and constitutional attorney Amir Benno with us as well. Amir, I'm going to start with you. Senator Dick Durbin said that basically Mitch McConnell was the key thing that was needed if this was ever going to happen. Take a listen.
Once Mitch McConnell made it clear he intended to acquit, even despite the compelling evidence, what the House managers needed wasn't more witnesses or more evidence. What we all needed was more Republican courage.
Amir, I want to get your reaction. I also want to ask you if you think that the Democratic House managers did an adequate job in proving that what the president did was, in fact, unconstitutional and deserved to be taken to this point of an impeachment post-presidency.
I don't think they did a good job. I think that, that it was a rushed process. The first time that we haven't had a real investigation, a fact-finding beforehand, and that's why they wanted to call witnesses. As a trial lawyer, any trial lawyer knows that if you go into trial saying, Judge, I want to conduct my investigation at the trial, the judge is going to throw the book at you. I mean, and that's exactly what the House managers did. So I think that there's plenty of basis for Republican senators to have rejected the House manager's argument, other than just, political expedience or cowing to what Mitch McConnell would have directed them to do. They could have decided that it was not jurisdictionally allowable for the Senate to try this case. They could have determined that it was a violation of the First Amendment. Like I said, the due process arguments with no fact finding, and also just this whole new theory of what is a high crime and misdemeanor being a course of conduct that extended back to before Donald Trump was even elected president. Yeah. There's so many bases on them to have rejected this, and they never put the goods up. They never said, here's the facts of what happened, and there was a riot, but that it's directly attributable to Donald Trump. That was two dots that they never really accomplished connecting. And so I don't think that Dick Durbin is correct.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Jamie Raskin, Nan, after it was all wrapped up on Saturday, said that they have no regrets. This is now for the record. He said that it was almost like he was saying, we knew there was no chance, but we wanted, we wanted to. It was all theater. It was theatrics. It wasn't for the American people. It wasn't for the taxpayers. It was for Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats.
Yes, Rob, it was pure theatrics. That's a face-saving comment by Representative Raskin. This entire House so-called prosecutor, they weren't prosecutors. This was not a trial. This wasn't even a legitimate impeachment trial. But what the House prosecutors did was sheer demagoguery. There was a lot of emotion. There were a lot of quavering voices. There was a lot of bleating, as Scott Adams says, which is just pleading to emotion. It was entirely a public spectacle, entirely politicized, and kudos to the Republicans who refused to go along with this. They did the right thing.
Let me play you that soundbite from Congressman Raskin here as he wrapped up the House's side. Take a listen.
It was a dramatic success in historical terms. It was the largest impeachment conviction vote in U.S. history. It was by far the most bipartisan majority that's ever assembled in the Senate to convict a president, which has traditionally been a kind of partisan thing in American history. We have no regrets at all. We left it totally out there on the floor of the U.S. Senate.
Emerald, your thoughts?
Well, I think that in the interview that Michael Vanderveen did with CBS News, CBSN, I think he really hit the nail on the head when he asked the anchor how much doctored evidence is enough for you. I think that the Democrat House impeachment managers really undercut any kind of credibility they might have had with their argument when they did doctor tweets and when they played selectively edited clips of former President Trump, because you have a jury of senators there who have a lot of political capital they'll expend if they do vote to impeach President Trump. And then you saw the kind of argument put forward. And then I do think the former president's lawyers did a great job of highlighting those discrepancies in the House Democrat impeachment manager's arguments. And so, I think that was one of the major things that I took away from the trial, is that it was so obvious how they fix some of the evidence. And then I would like to know what Vanderveen was talking about in that interview he did with CBS News. He said some of it they didn't even highlight, that they had doctored even more evidence. So when you do that in a regular court of law, that's just been thrown out.
Yeah, you make such a good point.
Disqualifying.
And by the way, it undercut the credibility of CBS News as well, because they've got an anchor going on the air, and she says, well, what, they changed 2021 to 2020, and they took away the blue check mark? I'm like, what planet are we on right now? That's against the law. That's doctoring evidence. You're right. If this was a criminal court, it would be thrown out. The judge would joke at it. Go ahead, Amir.
But this is like typical of the Democrats, right? They'll say, "Oh, well, yeah, there was voter fraud, but it was just a few thousand votes, so it doesn't matter. It's just a little bit. There's cheating, but it's just a little bit of cheating. It doesn't matter." The Lincoln Project, oh, there's a little bit of pedophilia, but just a little bit, so it doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, the Lincoln Project.
These are all very, very bad things, and that they just try to sweep it aside, saying that it's de minimis. It's just a little bit is really unconscionable.
Can we just take a moment, since Amir brought it up, to note that the Lincoln Project basically folded on Friday, which was President Lincoln's birthday?
Right. And John Weaver, by the way, if you're going to bring up the Lincoln Project, get your thoughts on this with the Lincoln Project. They didn't report on any of this John Weaver pedophilia stuff prior to the election. And then all of a sudden, now the AP is reporting it. And it's just, the timing is just laughable.
Because they're useful idiots. Is it okay for me to just be a little bit more real than normal here on a Monday morning? Let's come into the week hot. The Lincoln Project people were the flunkies, the ones who they weren't with the popular crowd, and so they decided to go and go with the bullies. And once the bullies are done using you, they toss you on the Barbie and giggle as they roast their marshmallows in your flesh. And that's what's happening to the Lincoln Project right now, and rightly so, because no group named after Lincoln, the emancipator of this country, should ever be these people. Not only were they traitors to Republicans, they were turncoats, but they also went out and they slandered the president of the United States and every one of us who voted for him needlessly. They could have made their points of non-support for the president without doing what they did. George Conway destroyed his own family. Yeah. These are not good people, and now they've been found out. And our fourth estate is derelict because we didn't find out about it beforehand. But we all suspected they weren't good people. And I also want to just ask one question for the record. All of you leftists out there, why is it always so necessary for Republicans to join you in your idiotic non-causes, like impeaching a person who's no longer the president? But we never hear anyone in media ask why no one who's a Democrat crosses over when the Republicans are trying to do something of worth, like saying that babies that are born alive after a botched abortion should get medical care. We can't get one Democrat to cross the aisle to vote on that legislation, but they wanted Republicans, and got some of them, got some nincompoops to cross the aisle and vote with them on the impeachment. And those people, their careers are done. Anyone who did that, they're done. But where are the media types calling for bipartisanship from the other side?
Stacy, let me bring in Mark Halperin here. Mark, Stacy brings up some good points there, a lot of good points, I should say. But the left, supposedly the party of the moral high ground, is that gone? Is that just a mirage now, once and for all?
Well, I think it's going to be fought out over the next 4 years for sure. And what would be great is if the media were neutral as opposed to taking one side. Just if I can, to go back to impeachment. I think the biggest flaw in the manager's case is they said, well, one article of impeachment, it's so simple. The reality is they focused so much on incitement, and I don't think they were ever going to be able to prove that because they didn't do an investigation. Right. They didn't have the ability to make a case on incitement because they wanted to rush this through.
And then they tried to change their argument halfway throughout when they realized incitement wasn't going to work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
By the way,
I think their strongest case would have been to.
Nan, I want to bring this up, by the way. I think we don't have a lot of time, but things just keep getting worse for Governor Andrew Cuomo in the state of New York. But by the way, this just happened in the state of California. The Recall Gavin Newsom 2021 effort now has surpassed 1.5 million signatures. They've got 1.5 plus some in the bank just in case some of those signatures are not legitimate. But that's all they needed. And now that will take the next step, and it becomes a very real possibility. So this is very big news in the state of California. Nan, we'll get your reaction, then we got to take a break.
Yeah, Rob, it's huge news. And of course, it's justified because incompetence at the level of the state government in California has resulted in terrible consequences for the people of California. The lockdown mechanism has been all too heavily used in California. That means that California's economy, working families, mom and pop, school children are suffering. They can't administer vaccines competently. Gavin Newsom and his technocrat billionaire supporters are now facing the people of California, and it's a beautiful thing. And they still have about 3 more weeks to get even more signatures.
Yeah, unbelievable. That could actually happen. I believe St. Patrick's Day, so March 17th is the formal deadline. Panel, great conversation. Thank you very much. Stacy, loved it. Good stuff. Appreciate it. Amir, love the headphones too. My special gift. My special gift. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.